guys, it's Kim again, and this is the fourth battle report. It's gonna be Iron Hills versus Moria at 600 points, and it's the first time Mike will be on the channel. After this, he'll be a regular, just like Jack and Jerry. And I do apologize, during the game, I guess I was so focused, and just so involved with it, that I missed a few of the camera angles. I still got a good chunk of it, but I'll try to voice over what's not shown. And yeah, it was a fun game. I hope you guys enjoy it. Here's the table for today's game. Once again, we are playing Capture and Control. I do apologize. In this photo, I did not place the objectives before taking the photo, but you can imagine the center objective in the middle and the other four are 12 inches away from it. So the only, I guess, important note would be the center objective is once again under that large log that models could walk under. So onto my army. It was led by dwarves, who had 3 black shields, 5 Moria goblins armed with shields, 3 goblins with spears, 2 prowlers and a bat swarm and a single warg marauder. The next warband was led by a black shield captain, leading 3 black shields, 4 Moria goblin with shields, 2 goblins with spears, and 2 prowlers and a single warg marauder. Then we had a lone Moria goblin archer leading no warband. And lastly, we had the Watcher in the water. Mike's army consisted of Dane, leading 12 Iron Hills and 3 Goat Riders, and his other warband was a normal Iron Hill captain, leading 11 Iron Hill dwarves. One of them had a banner. So Mike deployed his army in a battle line formation, as you can see on the screen. I counter deployed, taking up the middle and the right side of the board. Turn 1 before priority, I declared the Watcher would be coming in this turn. Luckily I rolled the 3 that I needed, and before priority I decided to deploy the Watcher near the top objective. Now I did this to force Mike to move his force either downwards or force him to send some troops to fight my Watcher. So when Mike rolled for priority, he got it. I countered with a heroic march off my black shield captain. He moved his whole army down towards the middle, deciding to go away from the Watcher while still maintaining his shield wall formation. I responded with moving my whole force into a wall, blocking half the table. In this formation, I would immediately have 3 of the objectives in my control, while having the 4th one technically in my possession due to having the Watcher right next to it essentially. Turn 2, I missed filming the movement phase, but sum it up, Mike once again got priority and moved his massive shield wall towards the bottom objective and the middle, and he managed to engage a few goblins, which I purposely left inside the tree. 2 Goat Riders charged a black shield, a Moria goblin with shield, and a Moria goblin with spear. In response, I moved my whole formation forward, capturing the top objective with the Watcher, and in response to the charges of the 2 Goat Riders, I sent my Warg Marauder to one of them and a Prowler to the other. I did this so the fight value would be equal with my Prowler to one of the Goat Riders. My shooting from the top Marauder was amazing. I managed to kill an Iron Hill dwarf, rolling 3 6s in a row, followed by a 5 due to having defense 8. In the combat, again, everything honestly went in my favor. I managed to kill not one, but both of the Goat Riders. So Mike's mobility went from having 3 Goat Riders to 1. So at this point in the game, I was feeling quite confident. I controlled 4 of the 5 objectives for capture and control, and the kill count, I had 0 goblins dead, while Mike had 3 Iron Hill dwarfs dead, 2 of them being his Goat Riders. So I was feeling very confident at this stage of the game, where I got Mike into basically a quarter of the table, and my whole army is slowly wrapping around to surround him. Turn 3, Mike got priority once again. In response, I did burn off my last point of might off my Black Shield Captain to call another Heroic March. So Mike maintained half his shield wall, while the other half surrounded the few goblins I had near the bottom. He did this because he did not expect to lose both his Goat Riders. With Dane charging my War Marauder, I was expecting a heroic combat, which posed a problem since I didn't want him gaining a better position or charging into more goblins. Onto my turn, I missed filming it, but I moved my whole force towards his wall with the Heroic March. I caught the Watcher in the water with the Heroic and got him into a good position to secure and protect 2 objectives with his 6-inch shooting ability for next turn. Now, I did get my Bat Swarm and Moria Marauder to charge the 2 furthest Iron Hills on his shield wall. This was in hopes of making Mike not call a combat with Dane. He would have killed all 4 models with the Marauder and the 2 extra Iron Hill dwarves. So I charged my Bow Goblin Captain to peel those dwarves off. During the combat, we did manage to kill one of the dwarves up top, but my Bat Swarm lost the fight and took 2 wounds in return, which for a second kind of worried me. Now down below to the important combats, I was shocked by the outcome. I only lost a Black Shield and 1 single Goblin, but managed to kill an Iron Hill Dwarf. My rolling really was on point. So yeah, pretty much losing 2 Goblins on the bottom flank was amazing, more than I could ask for. And onto my Bow Captain Goblins combat, it also went pretty well. I had to burn a single point of might to win the fight, and I had to burn his 2nd point of might to kill the Iron Hill Dwarf. I thought personally this was a good call, since I wanted to start getting a kill lead over Mike to break him before I was near it as well. At this point in the game, I had 3 regular Iron Hills dead and 2 Goat Riders compared to my 3 dead goblins. So I thought boosting up the might to have Mike have 6 dead Iron Hills to my 3 goblins was, in my opinion, worth it, because how strong, how much killing power, and how tanky they are, every kill honestly counts. Then onto Dane's combat, he easily won the fight and managed to kill every model on the Marauder except 1 Goblin Archer, who thankfully passed his Throne Rider test. Combat looked pretty good. I lost technically the War Marauder, a Black Shield, and a Spear support, but we did manage to kill 3, I think, Iron Hills Dwarf. It did cost 2 might on this side. This Goblin was a champ, and then the Marauder did quite good. So here is the overview.
That took 2 moves.
Turn 4, Mike got priority again, and I called a heroic move with Durbers. Mike tried to Master of Battle with his captain, but he didn't roll the 5+ he needed, so again, I did not film it, but I moved my whole top Goblin force into Mike's shield wall. I didn't move my Watcher, as he was still within the 6 inches of the heroic move, and I wanted to ensure that I could use his shooting without any hindrance, so if he didn't move, he would just need to hit on 3s, and I was banking on that. And onto Mike's movement, he moved Dane into my Goblin Archer and Goblin Archer Captain. His Goat Rider charges 2 of the Goblins, and the rest of his Dwarves charge the remaining 6 to 7 Goblins at the bottom flank in hopes of cleaning them all up. Mike wanted to ensure they all died before he started reclaiming the objectives and come like a sweeping motion, because at this point of the game, we both realized I owned all 5 of them. So he wanted to start getting back points in case somehow the game ended in the next turn or 2, because we had a lot of combats coming up. So onto the shooting phase, my Watcher rolled a 5 for his technical shots, which was awesome, and I put all of them into his Iron Hill Dwarf Captain. I wanted to get rid of this captain since he still had 2 points of might, and with his defense of 8, he's honestly a tanky model. I didn't want any of my goblins to deal with him, So of course the Watcher was the obvious answer, and some might ask, the first roll hit him, and I dragged it into combat, and I put the other 4 shots into him. Someone might ask, why did I do that? You can always shoot into combat with the Watcher, and I wanted to maybe knock off a Fate, or maybe use a Might or anything off of Mike before the combat. Fortunately I didn't, because he's still D8, but it was worth the shot. Onto the combat. Dane called a heroic combat, and Durbers called one as well. And Mike got the first combat, so he easily killed the bow captain and the goblin archer. So with the combat finish, he continued to charge Dane into another goblin, just to peel one off of the goat rider. Then onto my combat with Durbers. He was with a bat swarm and a black shield captain on a trapped Iron Hill. So we easily won the fight and easily killed him. And so I moved my bat swarm onto the Iron Hill dwarf captain, fighting the Watcher just to have extra dice to win the fight, while both the black shield captain and Durbers just continued further into the iron shield wall. Then onto the regular combat with Mike's priority. We decided to go back down, where Dane easily kills the single goblin he was fighting, and so does the goat rider. On this bottom flank, as you guys can see, Mike is slowly turning the tide. My goblins, as mentioned in the beginning of the battle report, are slowly succumbing to the strength 4 Iron Hills. Though this was expected, since this was my weaker side, when compared to the other half of the table, I should mention that every goblin below the tree trunk decided to stab, since I felt if they were going to die anyways, I might as well get that rerolling 1s to wound if I do happen to win these fights. Now within the tree trunk fight, I lost the Prowler and Black Shield, just leaving a single Moria goblin alive, which was all I needed because he was blocking the path towards the middle objective. So I had another turn of just tying down these Iron Hills and maintaining this objective over Mike. Then we move on to the main battle, where Mike's Iron Hills managed to kill, I think, only 1 or 2 of my goblins, but I was still getting a kill or 2 in, and I wasn't too worried, since if there were gaps in my goblin wall now, I had enough bodies to fill them in and replace the dead. And this is where Mike starts to shield more than strike on this side. And thankfully though, if we look, my Marauder once again wins the fight, knocks down and kills the Iron Hill dwarf. The Marauder is performing extremely well just due to the sheer number of dice. It helps break that D8 Iron Hill armor. And Durbers and the Black Shield Captain, they're whiffing a bit, not killing. But it wasn't too bad, I was still in a pretty good position. And then onto the Watcher combat with the Bat Swarm. I win the fight rolling 8 dice, but surprisingly, needing 4s to wound, I only managed 2 wounds. Now, they were enough to kill the captain, but I didn't want to risk Mike passing his fate. So I used the Watcher's only might to bump up one of the wounds I got to make it a 3rd one, thus killing the Iron Hill dwarf captain. The captain still had 2 unused points of might, so I thought trading my only point for those 2 was well worth it. As I mentioned before, the Iron Hill dwarf captains are very strong and very tanky, and there was no way I was going to let this captain live to potentially fight more goblins or do something crazy. So here's an overview at the end of the combat. As you can see, things are looking semi-decent still for the goblins, and surprisingly, we still own all 5 objectives. The following turn, Mike wins priority once again. I use Durbers' last point of might to call a heroic move. I primarily did this because at this point, both Mike and I are 6 models away from breaking each other. So I wanted to be able to dictate the fights and get better positions to ensure I can break him before he breaks me. So basically this turn is very pivotal. So I get all the charges I want and combats on the left side of the board. Since Mike couldn't contest due to the captain dying, he had no might to call a heroic move. After I got all the combats I wanted, goes back to Mike's regular movement. He continues to push into the middle of the tree trunk, aiming for that middle objective. All that's stopping him is a single Moria goblin. And then he sends a single Iron Hill towards the bottom objective, because he knows if one of us breaks his turn, the game could end, and if he doesn't have any points, that's it. So Dane continues to charge some goblins, since he knows he'll kill them faster than his regular Iron Hill troops. And his last Goat Rider charges towards the farthest right objective, though he's just shy of charging my one goblin defending it. And we move on to the shooting phase. Once again, my Watcher rolls a 5 for his shots. He hits one Iron Hill and pulls him into combat. I did not wound him. His second shot hit an Iron Hill and I rolled a 6, thus killing him. With my third shot, I hit another Iron Hill but failed to wound. My fourth shot missed, and my fifth shot hit one more Iron Hill and didn't wound him. So in total, from the shooting phase, I managed to kill an Iron Hill dwarf and drag 3 more into the Watcher's combat. So I'm pretty excited because that's already basically 4 out of the 6 I need to break Mike this turn for points and for his courage test. In the combat phase, Mike is cleaning up the remaining goblins towards the bottom of the table. The 2 Iron Hills kill that single Moria goblin, and Dane easily kills both the goblins. And the goblin in the tree trunk defending the middle finally dies. Hence now the middle objective is exposed, and Mike now has access to it. Then onto the Watcher's combat. Mike decided to shield with all 3 dwarves, so he would roll 6 dice. Thank goodness I rolled the 6, winning the fight, and luckily, needing 5s to kill the dwarves because they're D7 to my strength 6, I managed to kill all 3 dwarves, which helped greatly because I thought this turn I'd break Mike. After that combat, Mike decided every single combat now, he is going to shield to have a better chance of surviving, which honestly does help a lot in his combats. The only combat that resulted in a death was my Warg Marauder. Once again, as I mentioned before, once a Warg Marauder charges and wins a fight, 8 dice at strength 4 will typically kill anything, especially a warrior model. Unfortunately, again, besides that, no one else dies. Overview, both armies are almost broken. However, I still have 4 of the objectives. Mike finally has gotten the bottom objective. We got a Goat Rider charging towards Billy. Billy's gonna die. You got Dane and a few goobers in the middle. And I think we have a comfortable position on the left flank. One of the last turns, everyone got tagged. We're both on the verge of breaking. I'm 2 away. Mike is 1 away.
2, I think.
2.
No, 1. It's 1.
One objective on Mike. You got Dane and 2 others looking at the Watcher who peeled 2 guys off. I still now own 3 objectives. Hopefully the 4th one. This is a very important combat right here. I missed the movement phase, but Mike's Goat Rider charged into the goblin holding the objective, and 2 Iron Hill dwarves moved onto the middle objective. And every goblin got engaged in some sort of combat. And during the shooting phase, I managed to shoot both the dwarves off the middle objective with the Watcher, thus keeping it in my possession. And moving to the combat phase, the Watcher unfortunately lost the combat. However, I took no wounds, and the goblins and dwarves continue to fight. And thanks to all the traps, it forces Mike to start shielding with every single dwarf he has. He can't afford to take a swing yet. And I finally managed to break Mike by killing a single Iron Hill dwarf. Thanks to the Black Shield's hatred, out of all the fights, I won 1 fight, and thanks to 2 Black Shields, the +1 hatred dwarf special rule came in very handy for this very specific moment. So at the end of the turn, I am not broken, but Mike's force is broken, and the objectives currently are there's 1 contested, I own 2 of them, and he owns 2. So if the game were to end, it would be a 5-2 or 5-4 victory. The next turn, I missed again the movement, but the Goat Rider rushes towards the top objective, and Mike easily passes his courage due to Dane's Fearless Bubble. Only one Iron Hill Dwarf failed, since he was too far away to be in Dane's Steadfast Bubble. And the rest of my army starts tagging all my goblins, trying to prevent me from reclaiming the objectives. I start to rush one of my black shields towards the bottom objective, and start banking on the Watcher's shooting to get all the dwarves off the middle objective to still have it in my possession. And when we go to the shooting phase, the Watcher does manage to remove both the Iron Hill dwarves off the middle objective. However, that means the Watcher is fighting Dane and 2 Iron Hill dwarves. In my mind, I thought this was going to be the death of the Watcher or severely hinder and damage him. And onto the combat, which I think was the most pivotal one throughout this game. We saved the Watcher fight for last. Onto the other fights, as you guys see on the screen, we don't manage to kill many dwarves. Mike continues to shield, rolling 5s and 6s, and my goblins can't beat that due to the fight value. I don't believe I lost any models. Or sorry, what I meant to say was I don't believe I lost many models. I lost enough to be broken at the end of this turn, so we were both broken officially. The only good thing on this side was that my Warg Marauder finally manages to kill Mike's banner, so when the game continues, I don't have to deal with his rerolling. And we move on to the most important combat with Dane. Now, he did call a strike with one of his last 2 points of might. And so I'm looking at Mike saying, all you need to roll is a 6, you got 4 dice on Dane with the charge, and you have 2 Iron Hill warriors helping you. So I decide, let me set the bar. I roll my 6 Watcher attacks. Got the 6. You could easily, you just need a 5 basically, because Dane has a point of might left. So Mike goes to roll Dane's attacks. He gets a 4 high, and I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty good, like, that's not bad. You still have 2 extra attacks from the warriors. You just need a 6. And he rolled 2 1s. And we were stunned because we realized Mike did not have enough might to boost it up. So the Watcher actually won the fight, and this is where Mike was saying that's game. I put all my attacks into Dane and only do 3 wounds. But Mike has to use all 3 of his fate, and after all the dice rolls are said and done, Dane has 1 wound left at the end of the combat. On to the last turn, my Watcher came in clutch. He removed and killed the Goat Rider on that top objective, and I saved the middle objective, and everyone's engaged. I managed to pull 1 more goblin onto the last objective, so currently I own 3 to 1 of Mike's. So going on to the combat, it's pretty much cleanup at this point. I'm not going into too much detail, but my goblins continue to surround and kill the last few Iron Hills. And I guess the most important combat again was Dane versus the Watcher. Watcher wins the combat and kills Dane, and this leaves Mike with 2 Iron Hills left on the table, and I still have a decent amount of bodies left. So at the end of the game, the scoring would be 10 points for Moria. I owned 4 objectives, so that's 8 points, plus 1 for wounding and killing the leader, and 1 for breaking the enemy, to Mike's 4 points. Mike, so this is the post-game interview. Just tell me from the beginning to the end how you felt in the mid-game, early game, and late game.
So early in the game, we definitely wanted to try and capture the center as quickly as possible. I was staggered off a little bit during the beginning, mainly because I wanted to see what you were going to do. Mm-hmm. As I saw, you were very aggressive towards the center line at first, swinging to what would have been this side. So then I got a little bit defensive. Mm-hmm. We went up towards your side of the board, still holding our wall, until I can figure out exactly what you were trying to do. Once things started hitting a little bit, we could see that top flank towards you was definitely the powerhouse.
Yeah. With the watcher and everything.
And I definitely, it was sad to lose some of my my goat boys in the beginning. I guess I was a little too aggressive with them, mainly because I needed them to do what I was doing, what the intention was. After that, things started going a little bit more the way we wanted to.
Yeah.
We started definitely
killing the goblins,
capturing that flank considerably. We started making moves towards objectives, and then the watcher just sniping off dudes off the center. I couldn't
hold it.
I couldn't keep that line supported the way I wanted to for that amount of time with what was going on. The watcher continuously rolled 5s for his shooting, so each turn getting 5, and then the last one getting 6 was pretty rough. Things that went our way went towards the dwarves' way was definitely priority.
Yeah, every turn.
Might have lost 2 priorities during the game, so it's really nice having you expend all that might to begin with. As I said, that flank just couldn't. I knew that flank wasn't going to hold on.
Yeah.
It held on just the amount of time as I thought it would be in order to try and capitalize. One thing that failed, basically, my thoughts was Dane charging big and tasty and absolutely just whiffing. He called a strike, had a mite left, and he didn't roll.
I think Mike had rolled a high of a 4, and his 2 supports rolled 2 1s, and I rolled a 6, and he was out of might.
It was pretty bad, and so that was just going to be the deciding factor. One of my MVPs, I would say, would be that surviving goat boy until he got gobbled up. Definitely capturing
2 objectives.
2 objectives. We had a contesting over there that we were in the mosh pit for. Definitely trying to keep it going. But ultimately,
So, was there anything when you saw my list that you were worried about initially, or just going in, you just knew how to deal with the watch already and just gotta move around the table?
So yeah, I mean, I'm always worried about the watcher just because he does, especially when you're getting off those mount shots. It's pretty brutal. That's why I wanted to be a little bit more defensive and conservative with my guys. To kind of keep the watcher in the back a little bit. Ultimately, once our lines clashed, it was a moot point at that. But yeah.
Well, thank you, Mike. Guys, we'll see you next time, okay? So I hope you guys enjoyed the battle report. It was a fun game. I thoroughly enjoyed playing against dwarves from Moria every single time. Expect a battle report every 1 week, and for the tactic videos, hopefully twice a week. Just depending on how much time I have, school and work and everything going on. Again, let me know how the format works, if you're enjoying it, if you want some changes. And hopefully the next battle report, you'll get to see Javier play his Isengard. Until next time, enjoy.